Dan, can you hear me?
Yeah, you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right.
All
Yeah,
right,
I'm dialed in
everything
by
functioning this morning.
phone today, so no video.
All right. I passed your request on to Jeanette. I'm going to mention it, the Fly Quiet summary that they put up. So we'll see where that goes, okay?
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to warn you before we did anything.
Sure.
Is Jeanette around, or is it just you and I?
She hasn't logged on yet. I'm not sure quite how we started the meeting without her, but I guess since there's just two of us, it started.
Yeah, it's unusual. These things don't usually start until the person who initiates the meeting is on.
Yeah. Well, maybe there aren't tight controls on executive meetings.
Yeah, I guess. Oh boy. I was looking at the agenda. It looks like we're not going to have a report on the Fly Quiet Committee on Friday.
Yeah, I didn't look at Friday's agenda.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I should, as soon as Jeanette gets on, I'm going to ask her if that was a mistake or you really not want to tell anybody what we're doing. Other than that, did you hear that Arlene's not running for office again?
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know what that means for representation on ONCC. It doesn't necessarily exclude her from continuing in some form.
It's my understanding that she's just going to move on.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah. She's been doing it for 8 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
I'd move on, but I'm looking for things to do since I retired.
We'll have this wrapped up in the next 3 to 4 years, so don't worry.
Yeah, this thing is never going to be wrapped up. No, I'm kidding. I expect it to be wrapped up sooner than later in some form. And then I can head off into the sunset.
Then we just have to explain it for the next 30 or 40 years. So
That could be somebody else's job.
you need a transition, start laying the groundwork for a transition team.
Yeah. It's my understanding that's what
Evan
the mayor. Hello?
Yeah, I was going to say Evan can explain this for the next 30 to 40 years. He's the only one that'll be around.
Yeah, you're right. I understand that Mayor Sherwin is going to get together and start talking about it with his committee. The transition, I mean.
Yeah.
So. I'm sure we'll hear it all today. I'm surprised Jeanette is not yet.
Yeah, we still got almost 15 minutes though.
Dan, can you hear my humidifier in the background?
I don't hear anything other than your voice.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Zoom does a pretty good job at muting the audio when you aren't talking, so you don't hear background noise,
I'm good.
unless it's loud. So low-level noises don't really hear unless they're loud when you're talking.
Hey, Frank. I don't hear you.
That's your blessing for the day.
What's that?
I said, that's your blessing for the day.
Yeah.
How you been?
I was at Pasta d'Arte the other day. I didn't see you there.
We decided to go a little west. Called my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. They live out in Glen Ellen. They got a real nice restaurant on Rollwind Road called Antonio's or something like that. Very nice Italian restaurant.
Oh,
So we thought we'd venture to the other side of the airport. It's quiet over there,
yeah.
except for the cars. You
Yeah.
couldn't. Yeah, we were eating outside. You couldn't hear yourself talk because of the cars. So,
Wow.
yeah. How's things by you?
Oh, everything's fine.
That's good. Let's hope we get through this nonsense one of these days.
We will. We will. That's a bad attitude, man. It's not nonsense. It's
Oh, no.
something.
Oh, no. I shouldn't have used that word. You know me, sometimes a word comes out that isn't the most appropriate. I fully believe in what's going on, and I am one of the biggest proponents of following the scientists. I put a mask on when I'm near anybody. So it's not nonsense in my mind. You're right.
Okay, good. Good.
Yeah. No.
I don't mean to lecture you. And
No. Hey, we're about to, we're in the same age group, so I don't take lecturing. I just call it conversation.
Good. It is.
You may be 1 or 2 years more senior than I, but that's insignificant.
I'm sure I am.
How old are you?
71.
I'm 70. I'll be 71 in a month.
Oh, all right.
Well, exactly a month, September 30th. Put that on your calendar, okay?
All right. We'll have a party.
Social distance.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeanette.
Hi. Sorry. I'm moving offices, so
Again?
some of my stuff is over there, and I'm running back and forth. Yeah, again.
Where are you at now?
An office away from where I'm at now. I don't ask, I don't know. Just, okay.
They kept you in the building, though, right?
Yes, I'm
Oh,
still in the building. I'm still in the building, just in another, as of Wednesday, in another office.
Okay. How was your vacation?
It was nice. We had a great time.
Good.
Great time relaxing, doing a lot of nothing.
That's the way to be.
Yep.
I helped paint in my daughter's kitchen this weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice of me, too.
That was really nice of you. Hi, Frank. Hi, Dan.
Hey, good morning, Jeanette.
Morning.
Good morning.
Joe, are you painting the bedroom so that when you move in with her, it's the appropriate color for you?
Well, I'm still trying to talk Terry out of kicking me out.
You're planning ahead. Good for you. Jeanette, looks like you've been in the sun.
It's been hot, and I've been in a pool practically every day last week, except I think
You look like my daughter now. She's a dark bronze.
Jeanette, when Ryan does his report on the alternatives,
Mhm.
will he mention that there's not going to be enough fly quiet meeting because he's going to be talking about the same things so people don't ask?
Yeah, I'll leave that up to you guys. I just didn't want to be repetitive.
Yeah.
If he's going to give an overview, so.
Will he mention the letter too, or is that going to be something else?
No, we can certainly do your own report and just abbreviate it according to the presentation. If that's
Yeah, why don't we just do that? Just
okay. So I'll
so they know we met.
Yeah, I'll amend the agenda to add the fly quiet report.
Okay, and it'll probably be 10 sentences at the most, if not less, because
Okay.
like you said.
Hi, Ernie.
Hi, Jeanette. Good morning.
Good
How's
morning.
everyone?
Good morning,
Hi,
Ernie.
Joe. Morning, Frank.
How are you?
Good.
Glad to hear it.
Here comes everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning, Ray Cooper here.
Good morning, Dr. Cooper.
Good morning, Jeanette.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
Hey, Karen. Hi, Arlene.
Good morning.
Morning.
Nope.
I'll have an espresso, Joe.
Coming right up.
We still have a few people signing on.
Got a lot of people.
Yep.
Hi, Aaron.
Good morning. How are you?
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Mayor, whenever you're ready, we have a quorum.
Okay, sounds perfect. Thank you. Okay, thanks for
Hi,
joining
Evan.
us, everyone. This is the Monday, August 31st, 2020 Zoom meeting of the ONCC Executive Committee. We have an agenda and some other attachments that came along with the meeting notice, so hopefully everybody has access to them. And I'll call the meeting to order. And first item of business is to approve the meeting minutes of August 13th. This was our strategic planning meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move so.
Thank you, Dennis.
Second.
And second is Karen?
Yep.
Okay, great. Jeanette, I'm sorry, are there any additions or corrections? Okay, Jeanette, could you take the roll call vote, please? Remember, we need to do this as part of the Open Meetings Act. We need to take roll call on everything.
Sure. Mayor Jurasek,
Yes.
Joe Nunzio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Evan Summers,
Yes.
Dennis Ryan,
Yes.
Brian Gazer,
Yes.
Superintendent Cassell,
Yes.
Karen Robles,
Yes.
and Aaron Frame.
Aaron?
Yes. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then. Item 3 is a discussion on the IGA renewal, meeting with the city of Chicago. So Aaron, I guess you'll start us off on this? Or
Actually,
Karen?
I want to defer to Karen. I think
Okay.
Karen wants to talk about something with you.
Okay, sounds good. Karen, thank you.
Okay. Yes. So we had a very productive meeting, and now I'm frantically trying to find my notes. So we did have 2 items that we discussed as part of the IGA. So what we're doing is it's a working meeting with CDA's attorneys to make sure we're comfortable with the language. And we had 2 areas where we're looking for executive committee feedback. So the first was in regards to the attendance policy that we're putting into place, and the recommendation that the language include the suspension of a member if they don't meet the attendance requirements that'll be outlined in the IGA. And the appeal of a suspension, our recommendation was that that appeal go to the executive committee, and we wanted to make sure that that was language everyone was comfortable with. And Aaron, if you want to fill in any additional details, but we had debated whether it would be the chair who could make a determination on that suspension appeal, or whether it would be the full executive committee. We felt like it should rest with the committee rather than just an individual person, since this is intended to be a 5-year IGA, and none of us know kind of what things will look like in the next 5 years.
So we had one example that we considered, and that was if there was a old administration in a municipality that was not attending ONCC, and a new administration won an election and was very pro engaging the airport and ONCC. So in that situation, that municipality could appeal their suspension to whoever, and then that we would say as whoever, yes, that's a valid reason, we can reinstate your membership.
Okay, so the chair, if the chair is a reasonable person, could also make that on his or her own. But I concur with the sentiment that it shouldn't rest with one person, because I think what we've striven to do all along is keep politics out of this, recognizing that politics is always in the background of what we do. So as sitting chair, I would be comfortable with the idea that the executive committee rule on the appeal. You know, we have all kinds of other things that are subject to executive committee concurrence, so that makes sense to me.
Great. So we will go ahead and incorporate that language then into the IGA. We just wanted to make sure everyone was in concurrence on that. And then the other area of discussion was focused on the question of majority, and whether we were looking at majority of members versus the majority of quorum. And so there were a couple of areas in the IGA where it called out specifically a majority of members versus a majority of quorum. We felt like a lot of the changes that we're trying to make in the IGA are moving us towards being able to continue to hold productive meetings where we're able to take action by putting this attendance language in place, but also had concerns that as we get past fly quiet and maybe more into a routine kind of reporting and analysis phase of the ONCC, we may again see not consistent attendance by all of our members. And so the discussion was that we felt that for the majority of the action items that ONCC needs to take, a simple majority of the quorum of a meeting would be sufficient, but that we should detail in the IGA any areas where we felt that a majority of members would be required, so that we were very explicit throughout the IGA. So. Aaron and Evan, I don't know if you have more specific.
No, I'm good. I think you said it well.
So the only area that I can think of where we might have a majority of members would be admitting a new member. But that's just my first knee-jerk reaction to this. Maybe a majority of a quorum is sufficient, especially because we have all of these attendance rules where, you know, we'd ensure that at least we have an active quorum participating.
I think that would work, Mayor. So here's a couple of math examples just to illustrate the point. So right now the commission has 66 members. So if we say a majority of the members, we're talking about, you know, 33, 34 yes votes. Mm-hmm. If, for example, as you are aware, sometimes on a Friday morning at Cafe Le Cave, we might be running 5 minutes late to get that 33rd or 34th member. And so let's say it's a day where 34 people are present, and obviously a majority of quorum would be half of that, which could be 17 people of 34. So I think the question is, based on the numbers, are there certain topics which are a higher gravity that warrant having more people actively present and engaged to make that yes vote versus the things that are more routine and could be approved by quorum? For example, meeting minutes, maybe financials. I think the more routine things, it makes sense to rely on a majority of quorum versus a majority of members for major policy decisions. And I guess I would just offer that as food for thought.
And that's good food for thought, I think. So majority, you said 17, I think it would be 18, wouldn't it?
Yeah, whatever 50%
so if the quorum's
plus 1 is.
34, you need half plus 1.
Correct. Correct.
I think when we talked through this, there were just items where even if you look at, if we don't clarify this, we could be in a position where if even one person voted no, things could potentially not be approved if it stayed that the majority of membership had to approve something. And so we talked that maybe there were items, like you mentioned, whether it's a new member or like the hiring of an executive director, if there were things of a certain gravity that required kind of a greater consensus of the membership in totality, as opposed to, you know, the example we gave was Aaron's residential sound program, where we don't want that to become, you know, frozen because we can't get attendance at meetings of a high enough level to get everyone to vote yes and move it forward. So,
yeah, the hard part, I think, comes delineating which are of more grave nature in a way that is not based on current circumstances, but that can be robust for a 5-year period, you know? So I'm thinking admitting a new member, changes to bylaws.
That makes sense, Mayor. And maybe one way to address it in the IGA is to give yourselves the option where you basically write a sentence in the IGA that says certain decisions can be decided, you know, on a majority of members versus a majority of those present for quorum, as further specified in the bylaws. And that way you have the option to do either in the IGA, but we don't have to modify the IGA because that would require approval of all of you, you know, during the 5-year period. And then you can essentially specify further in the bylaws, you know, that's one option.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is fly quiet. Maybe we need a majority of members to concur with the fly quiet.
I would agree, because I would call that a major policy decision.
Yeah, and so if we put it in the bylaws as part of the fly quiet committee's recommendations, and I agree, you don't want to have to modify an IGA all the time.
Right, because that requires approval or counter execution by all of your boards.
Yeah, yeah. Any thoughts from anybody else?
I've got to agree that it's a good idea, Mayor, because there's so many meetings that we've sat there and waited just for enough people to be there. And with a lot of these school districts, they run hot and cold at coming to the meetings, and some of the villages and towns. I think going by majority is much better than going by full membership or making those types of decisions.
We could convene a meeting with a quorum and approve minutes with a majority of that quorum, but if later in the meeting we have a major policy issue, we could get on the phone and encourage people to show up so that we have a majority of members, or defer it, but at least the financials and the minutes and any other routine things could be handled, and we're not deferring them.
Karen, do you like that idea of allowing yourself the either or in the IGA?
I do, because I think what's hard with the IGA is that it's 5 years and it's a much more rigorous approval process. And so trying to anticipate everything that we're going to try to do as a commission over the next 5 years is difficult. And so I think the bylaws gives us a lot greater flexibility to adapt as a commission and make those decisions by changing the bylaws so that it's all transparent. But that if we didn't anticipate, I don't know, something down the line, and we decided we wanted more than just kind of a simple majority of a quorum, we could update the bylaws accordingly. So I think that makes good sense. And I think too, we'll see how we do with our attendance policy changes and see if maybe that alleviates some of these concerns. But either way, at least we're building in the flexibility to make changes as we go.
Makes sense.
Good. Okay, so we're going to continue meeting with the city on these things as we work to finalize all of the language. So appreciate everyone's feedback. I think Evan had one other issue on this he was going to bring up, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yeah, so this actually occurred after our meeting with the City of Chicago. I was approached by DuPage County. They've gotten feedback that there's concerns from some residents, I believe that resident is Dan, regarding how how ONCC will treat the unincorporated areas. As it stands right now, we are contemplating that the county representatives of Cook and DuPage would represent all members of their county. There is a small contingent of people that believes that they should only represent the unincorporated areas. So does anyone have any problem with us having, I'm pretty sure
I thought it was the intent that either Cook or DuPage represented the unincorporated areas.
It is, Mayor. In the current IGA, it specifies specific townships because originally the thought was those residents who live in incorporated areas, their village has the opportunity to join the ONCC. And the county was supposed to represent the unincorporated areas for all the other residents. In all these many years, we have specified the unincorporated areas, but we recognize that there was some confusion. And so we are willing to essentially make it for the entire county, right? We definitely want county participation. And I think after all these, this is 24 years now that you've been active, we are okay either way. So we can write it. Either way, we just need to know your preference.
So here's my concern. You are in a municipality in DuPage County, and that municipality is a member of the commission. And you also have a county representative. You're technically represented by two people if that county representative also represents incorporated areas. I thought the intent was, given the large amount of unincorporated areas, that we have the representation, and that was the intent of naming specific townships, was to make sure that we had sound affected unincorporated areas represented. So I don't think it should be the whole entire county.
Can I just play devil's advocate to that, Chairwoman? So I'm in Bensonville. I'm obviously represented by the municipality of Bensonville. I also reside in two school districts, District 100 and District 2, who are also conceivably representing my interest. So there is precedent for it to be represented multiple times.
Except the school sound insulation committee is what dictates the school district membership and its relationship with the school district. Not necessarily the planes flying over your house, but it was a mechanism for them to have a vote on sound insulation.
Right, but Mayor, remember that as of now, there are no voting restrictions to any members, so all school districts can vote on Fly Quiet.
I think, Mayor, the other element we talked about was, what if you live in a community, and let's say, we'll use Evan as an example, Bensonville decides they're no longer interested, and the mayor decides that they're no longer going to be active members of ONCC. While they have an option to have their community be a member, if you can't persuade your community leadership, the thought was then the county that you reside in could be your sounding board. I can see both sides of it. Residents can advocate to their communities. And certainly we want to broaden it so that it's all unincorporated at a minimum, because we didn't feel that just keeping it to the very limited townships that are included now was providing all of the unincorporated residents with representation options. But I do think that that was kind of the other component of making sure people felt they had representation, but I do see both sides of it.
Yeah, so for me, this is not a die on your sword issue. We are only talking about 2 votes. And it's not like, you know, you're multiplying the county vote by some reason or factor or whatever. So I'll go with where the majority of this group is comfortable. Are we okay with the county rep representing the entire county, not just unincorporated? Does anybody object to that?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay. I don't see anybody else jumping up and down, so.
Actually, Cook County, you know, since Frank D'Amato is kind of retired now and stuff, I don't really see any representative from Cook County ever showing up anymore.
You know, it's Pete Silvestri, and Pete has showed up. He was late to the last meeting that we had, but it is Pete Silvestri, and he has a good relationship with all the mayors. I know he's been very good about interfacing with.
He's a personal friend of mine. I grew up with him. So.
Yeah. So I think he was just getting his feet wet, and then COVID struck. So I would say there's not a lack of interest. He would definitely be interested.
Okay, so we will take all of the discussion today in the direction we've been given and keep working with CDA. I think our goal is still to be wrapping things up in the next month so that we can hit all of Chicago's deadlines for getting on their agenda, and also making sure we're taking things to the full commission. So we will keep editing. So.
Okay, I appreciate it. It sounds like we've got a good working relationship there, and I appreciate the communications back to this group so we can move this along. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to item 4, which is the Fly Quiet Committee update. Joe?
Hey, everyone. We had a long and productive Fly Quiet meeting with a whole lot of information. If I could just go through a few things real quick. The first thing I'd like to do is just administrative. Right now, we have ONCC member comments at the beginning of the meeting. I'd like to have those comments at the end of the meeting from now on, only because it seems like some of the questions they may have may be answered while the committee is discussing whatever on the agenda, assuming that a committee member wants to ask a question after the agenda. It just makes more sense to me because they may ask, and it has happened in the past where somebody will ask a question that will probably be answered during the course of the
Yeah, I think the reason it was at the beginning really arose from Elmhurst's desire to participate. They were not a member, but they had an alternate plan they wanted to present. So we allowed them to do it at the beginning of the meeting, so then it could be discussed. But then there's also the advantage to allowing that at the end of the meeting, where that municipality could provide its opinion and any additional questions on the subject matter of that meeting. And I've seen it work both ways in municipalities, at the beginning or at the end of a meeting.
It seemed to me that that if something of great importance needs to be discussed with the committee, it might go through regular channels, so that if it's that important, it becomes an agenda item. But if somebody simply wants to make a comment about something that's on their mind, might as well do it at the end of the meeting.
And anybody who wants to make a comment or has a suggestion can always engage with the official members of the committee too.
Yeah.
I think that was what we said all along: engage with your neighbors who are members of the committee. And you know, we've said all along that organizational behavior theory suggests that this working group on a highly technical matter probably should have no more than 7 people on it. But we've expanded it to make sure that we've got a full 360-degree representation of intimately affected municipalities and wards. So we certainly don't want to add, you know, to any numbers of the committee in our bylaws. It's specified. But I think moving it to the end might allow for more meaningful participation.
So is it all right if we change the agenda in that matter?
Sure. Everybody else concur? Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I'm sorry to cut in, but I feel that that Mr. Annunzio's proposition is based on my willingness or desire to add comment at some time or another. I understand, as a member of the ONCC, I'm not on the Fly Quiet Committee. I understand that. But being told that if you want to make a comment, you have to make it at the beginning of the meeting before you know what the discussion is going to be about didn't make sense. And thank you, Joe, for bringing that up. My concern now is that by putting it at the end of the meeting during the audience comments, timing is everything. And if you're talking about something and a member of the ONCC wants to chime in with an opinion or whatever, I think it should be at least be able to do it in a timely fashion. I understand I'm not gonna vote on it, or any other ONCC member is not gonna vote on it, but to ignore someone just and relegate them to the end of the meeting when nobody's taking notes anymore and it's just another audience comment is sort of belittling.
It's certainly not an audience comment because you are a member and we are going to be listening to you. We listen to you every time we get together, Frank, and we consider what you say.
No, well, I appreciate that.
But on the other hand, you've got to run a meeting in a manner so there's control, and you just can't have people.
I understand.
Members coming up and asking questions and making comments every time something is said during an agenda. It'll turn into mayhem over time.
I don't like this.
What's that?
Yeah.
Right, because you're not on an executive committee.
Yeah,
I
I'm
understand
very
that.
liberal, Frank, allowing you to participate here because you're not a member of the executive committee either.
I understand, Mayor. I understand, and I appreciate you letting me even chime in. It's just that there doesn't seem to be a willingness outside of the committees, to be able to do or say anything, and it gets a little frustrating.
Frank,
I'm wondering, Frank, have you reached out to Malcolm Chester or Ernie Kossover or your neighboring ward representative with questions and ideas? Because everything that affects that northwest, northeast quadrant of the airport affects a group of you. It's not just the 41st ward. And that's what we've said all along. We've got to have a manageable, roll up your sleeves working group. And if we don't have control, we could have 54 people trying to chime in at one of these meetings and get nowhere. These are people who are putting technical expertise, devoting a lot of time to doing their homework, which I'm sure you do as well, but they're staying on topic too. I think sometimes we get questions and comments that are totally outside the purview of either the ONCC or the Fly Quiet Committee. And so we need to keep this discussion focused because time is of the essence, as we talked at the strategic planning meeting. We've got to get this thing going. So when OMP is complete, Fly Quiet 21, we'll have the regulatory approval to move forward.
I understand totally what you're saying. I'm the type of person that, in your own words, Mayor, I'm not going to be a seat warmer. I'm not here just to take notes for someone else. I'd like to do my best to help everyone, not to get in anyone's way or anything else. And if we're talking about a subject and timing says, okay, let's ask this question, it should be allowed. If it's a polite question, you may not like the question, but it should be asked sometime.
Frank,
you know what? Pass a note to somebody and ask them to ask the question.
Yeah, we've done that in the past. We've done that in the past. So if somebody in the audience had a question, brought it up to the chair, it was brought up. You can do it that way. Or you can do it, you can give this one of your friends or something like that that's on committee. But we can't.
How many other people from the city of Chicago are here today? Is anyone else from the city of Chicago here?
What do you mean, Frank?
I mean, participating in this meeting or attending this meeting. Is
This
anyone
is the
else?
executive committee, Frank. It's not a valid question.
The same thing happens, Mayor, at the other committee meetings. It's a very small group of people who wish to get involved. And I'm not doing this for the pay or
You
the
know what?
car or
I'm
anything
sorry I
else.
brought it up.
Well, you know, I know, Frank, you've got a willingness and the personality that says you want to participate, but I think you need to respect the structure of the organization and what our bylaws puts in place, especially for Fly Quiet. Certainly there are tech committee meetings which have a more open membership, residential sound. You know, there are opportunities for you to participate. And if you have very strong opinions on something, send an email to Joe. Contact one of your neighboring Fly Quiet members. And there's ways to participate, but we have to keep control of this because otherwise it's mayhem, you know, where mob rule, where 54 people are all of a sudden raising their hands trying to participate. We're trying to keep this to a very structured, organized way while including everyone's ideas and concerns. So let's try this with your comments being at the end of the meeting as a reaction to the discussion at the meeting. You should be reaching out to your fellow ONCC members who are on the Fly Quiet Committee and making sure that we have you know, the information at hand. If you don't understand something, give Jeanette a call and she can set up a meeting, you know, to have some things more explained. You know, we've had one-on-one meetings with ONCC members as we've tried to educate and inform and get everybody's opinion. So we want to encourage you to do that, but we can't really disrupt the structure of Fly Quiet.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, if I can continue now.
Yes, please.
Just a reminder that interim Fly Quiet resumes in September.
Yay.
Also on the agenda that there was a response from the FAA on regarding long runway availability. And I'm happy to report that they're receptive to it. That 10 Center isn't the only long runway that could be used, but we'd have to do a couple things. We'd have to get the airline's acceptance of using something other than 10 Center, and we'd have to get an approval from the FAA. But it is feasible, it is possible, and I believe that some of the members are looking at that seriously. Evan, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Saying yes. Yes.
Yes,
All right. All right, good. And lastly, what we did was we had a very long discussion on other alternatives. As you know, we only have alternative B. There was also a discussion on alternative C, D, and E. C was use of the full airport using RNAV and vectoring with 6 configurations. D was full airport with vector only with 10 configurations. And E was the full airport with vectoring and RNAV with 10 configurations. There's going to be a huge discussion, I suppose, on Friday about the whole thing, but I just want to let you know that it was discussed at the Fly Quiet Committee meeting.
Evan?
Lastly, yeah.
So it seems like we're at a point where we're taking in alternates, and do you think there should be a formal call for alternate proposals? I guess my concern would be we get to the end of this and somebody says, hey, I got an 11th hour solution here. And then we have to start this process all over.
It's funny you should mention it, Evan, because the next thing I was going to say is that we've got a request from Dan Dwyer looking at another alternative. So the opportunity is there, and it's because what I did was I passed it right on to Jeanette to have it go through the process, whatever alternative that he's suggesting.
So would that make sense to do a call for alternatives and then set a deadline for submission so we at least can tell the FAA we went through a process?
You know, I could mention at the meeting during the Fly Quiet report. If there's anybody out there that has got another alternative that they think is viable.
Yeah, because I've got a couple of dumb ideas in my head too that I might as well just see on a board and see if it is.
I'll make a formal request, send it in, and we'll have it looked at.
All right.
All right. I think that's all I have.
Very good. Very good. So I did look at that FAA memo on the long runway, and I must admit that it's too detailed and complicated, and it really doesn't impact my town. So I'm deferring to members of the Fly Quiet Committee, working with the FAA reps and CDA to figure that out amongst yourselves. Mount Prospect is not a member of the committee, but what really makes me feel proud of this group is how in-depth your discussion and your understanding of potential solutions and consequences is as a committee. So I just want to continue to encourage that rather. I have no preconceived notion of what the answer is as chair. And this truly is going to be a work product from this committee. So thank you for all the thought everybody's putting into it.
Okay.
Okay, so you do have a meeting Friday, and looking forward to some more productive outcome. Go on to the September 4th meeting agenda. We have meeting minutes and then CDA. Looks like your usual. You'll be talking about ANMS reports, interim Fly Quiet, which starts up again this fall. The permanent noise monitors, I know there's interest in that. Fly Quiet 21 updates and impacts due to COVID-19 on aviation. I think that's going to be really interesting just to understand what's going on in the sky above us at this point in time.
Jeanette, I have a question. What would you like us to present regarding item 4?
I was thinking, since the entire commission hasn't had a full overview of what the committee, they just get snippets. If you can present what we've talked so far, most recently, that would help. They're gonna vote on this, so I think it's important for them to know what the committee has been discussing. And I think the visuals help with a lot of the members.
So Jeanette, I was kind of puzzled by the draft agenda here because under the standing ad hoc committees, there is no Fly Quiet report listed.
Yeah, I'm going to add it on.
I think this item better belongs as an 8.3 agenda item.
Okay.
Because it is the work product of the Fly Quiet Committee. Of course, we'll rely on Aaron and Landrum and Brown to convey, a lot of this information. But is there any disagreement that it really should be under the standing ad hoc committee report?
Well, let me ask you this. How in-depth do you want to be? Because do I defer to Ryan and Aaron at some point to discuss?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Jeanette, my question was, do you just want a 10-minute recap of recent meetings and the fact that we have alternatives B, C, D, and E? I mean, you tell me. We can either take 5 minutes or we can take 20 minutes or somewhere in between.
I think somewhere in between.
Okay.
15 maybe?
We don't have a major featured speaker here or a topic.
Right.
This should be the centerpiece of Friday's meeting. And I would say, don't go as long as 20 minutes, but we should have a good set of slides, especially slides that the committee members or the commission members can access after the meeting if they want to go over it again. So whether it belongs in 6 CDA or 8 standing ad hoc, Joe and Aaron, whatever you want to do there.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll
so
plan
wait,
for that, Mayor.
Let's direct Jeanette then. Do we want to keep it under 6? And then Joe, you talk more about other things?
Yeah, what I could do is create it, like have an introduction and turn it over to how specific CDA wants to get with it. And I don't think it has to be, you don't have to do the whole presentation over again. I don't think you have to do the background, where we're at.
Right.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Joe, if you just want us to say, hey, in recent weeks, we had an alternative B and we just, created and presented, alternative C, D, and E, and here are the highlights, we can do that.
Yeah, I think that'll work. And if there's just questions, then they can call.
Yeah, or come to committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move item 4 under the standing committees.
Okay.
One other question I have, the FAA letter. When will that be mentioned? Is that
You should
something-
mention that in your
That
report,
would be in
Joe.
your report, Joe.
Okay. I just want to make sure there was where it was going to be. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mayor, just a heads up for you. So in 6.1, over the summer, we have 3 ANMS reports. So if you'd like, we can have Ryan focus on the July report because it'll capture May and June data. The IFQ will be probably a quick update. Permanent monitors will probably be 4 or 5 minutes. And then Ryan, how long is your slide deck for COVID-19? You're on mute.
That's just the same 5 or 6 slides that I had at Tech.
Okay, so Mayor, I think what that means is our report will probably be somewhere around, I'm gonna call it 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes total, just for planning purposes.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. So on the impacts of COVID-19 at the strategic planning meeting, Karen brought up an industry speaker who can talk about general trends in the aviation industry. And we thought maybe September or October. It's obvious he's not on Friday's agenda. Is that somebody we want to try and get on the October agenda on the heels of this impacts of COVID-19 presentation? It might be a good lead-in for October.
Yes, Mayor, I'm working on it.
Okay, good.
Jeanette, 8.2, there's a typo in front of Karen's name.
Oh, yes.
I was just going to email Jeanette after the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll be presenting the draft meeting calendar, which we're going to talk about as part of our next agenda item right now. And then the committee reports and the financials, so pretty standard.
Mayor, the only thing I'd like to add under your report is the formation of the ad hoc nominating committee.
Yeah.
Mayor Sherwin has agreed to chair that meeting,
Okay, sounds good.
or that committee, I should say.
Okay, so we have an amended agenda. Do I have a motion to approve this amended agenda?
I move so.
Second.
Motion and a second. And Jeanette, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mayor Jurasek,
Yes.
Joe Nunzio,
Yes.
Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
Evan Summers, Evan,
Yes.
Dennis Ryan,
Yes.
Brian Gazer,
Yes.
Superintendent Cassell,
Yes.
Karen Robles,
Yes.
and Aaron Frame.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's go on to the ONCC meetings calendar. And my question is, where are we with respect to reserving Cafe La Cave versus Zoom? Are we on the hook for any reservation fees or anything for the room?
I have an email to them. They did credit our account for the previous month, but I have not gotten a response for these upcoming months.
Okay. We may, you know, it's kind of nice when you have in-person meetings. We may need to think creatively about how to do a safe in-person meeting, especially if we're going to be going into a lot of detail on the Fly Quiet proposal. We might want to have them split us into 3 rooms and have like 3 roundtable discussions, and then convene in some fashion so that we could do a vote. But I think in order to facilitate the discussions, it might be good to break it up that way. Something to think creatively about, though. So I'll appreciate anybody's inputs or thoughts on that. Okay, any questions on this proposed calendar, or observations, objections?
Mayor, there are 4 instances where we have 2 public meetings in the same week. I'm going to flag those for Jeanette, talk to her offline and see if those are in the months of April, May, September, and November. I'll talk to Jeanette offline and propose some alternative dates. It's very helpful to the CDA if we can space them out. To do 2 public meetings in a week is a little bit much. We've done it before, so we know we can do it. I just would like to plan and see if we can come up with alternative dates. And maybe we can and maybe we can't.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, so we'll look for a slightly revised calendar for Friday then. Okay, before I go to comments for the audience, did any executive committee member have anything else they wanted to bring up? Okay, I'll go to comments from the audience, and Dan, your box has got a yellow line all around it, so I assume you turned your mic on.
Hopefully that means I'm unmuted. So
Yes. Yes.
thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the consideration for alternatives and fly quiet, given that it's sort of a fluid situation with the FAA responses. Our recommendation on that issue is going to be that any alternatives go through a discussion with CDA and Landerman Brown first to make sure they meet the committee's criteria. And that's what we've requested, and hopefully will be granted in the near term so we can get their expertise. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good thought. I mean, somebody, I could dream up some crazy little scheme and present it, and I'd hate to have it go through committee discussion and then CDA and Landerman Brown goes, we can't do it because, or whatever. So I like that engagement before it goes to the committee. We want to make sure that things don't get lost in analysis limbo, that it's expeditious. But the process should be, it comes in, goes through CDA and LMB, and then it goes to the committee. Joe, is that okay?
I just want to say that's why I had Dan's request go through Jeanette, because Jeanette will filter it to the people that have to see it first.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we want this to be really productive. We are the gold standard for the way this is done, and we want to make sure that we keep on a very productive pathway here and don't get bollocksed up in needless rigmarole. That's my technical word for the day, rigmarole. Okay. Okay, if there's no other business, then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we do have to take a roll call vote, and if everybody would indicate aye and that they've also heard everything.
Mayor Jurasek,
Aye, and I heard everything.
Joseph Anunzio,
Yes.
Dr.
Aye.
Cooper, sorry,
Yes, and I heard everything.
Evan Summers,
Yes and yes.
Dennis Ryan,
Definitely heard everything. Aye.
Brian Gazer,
Yes and yes.
Superintendent Cassell,
Yes and yes.
Karen Robles,
Yes and yes.
and Aaron Frame.
Yes and yes.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you all. Enjoy the day. Appreciate your continued participation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Windy out here.